On the show recently, we spoke about trypanophobia, which is an extreme fear of medical procedures involving injections or hypodermic needles. And it's a genuine thing for some people who are considering getting a vaccine. Today, we wanted to take a look at how to go about dealing with phobias in general. So to help me do that, I'm joined by Sean Zimunya, who is the Chief Social Worker and Senior Employee at Wellness Specialist. Good evening, as the time is now. Thank you so much for making some time. I really appreciate it.
Good evening, Nick. Thank you for having me.
So I thought we'd just jump right in. I know that phobias are a really broad thing, but what can we say about what causes us to have them?
Okay, so phobias by definition would be an overwhelming and unreasonable fear of objects or situations that pose little to no real danger. And then causes vary. A lot of the times it's because of the negative experiences that we might have had in the past with regards to a specific situation, which then causes a development of a phobia. It's also sometimes genetics and the environment. A lot of the times there's a link between the phobias that you would develop as an individual and the phobias that your parents would have developed. So I'll give an example. If we're speaking about the fear of dogs, which is cynophobia, for example, if your parents are not pet lovers, by extension, you're likely to become more or less the same. You become somebody who's scared as well of dogs because of whatever fears they associate dogs. That's essentially how phobias develop. So it's learned behavior, it's negative experiences in certain situations, it's genetics, it's the environment. But there are certain situations where changes in the brain functioning also result in the development of phobia. So it's a multiplicity of reasons, really.
I mean, do we know much about why people have something like a fear of needles or the fear of getting injections?
With injections, I think for a majority of us, it's the bad memories that we associate with probably painful injections in the past, especially in childhood. If you were unlucky or unfortunate enough to be exposed to a nurse or a doctor that didn't take proper care when they were injecting you, then automatically you associate any needle with pain, obviously. Then there's also just people that have sensitivity to pain. And it's also learned behavior because sometimes when you hear people speaking of injections and the pain that comes with that, then you automatically start associating injections with pain. It's more or less like what we see playing out in terms of the vaccination hesitancy, where it's the stories that people hear that lead them to conclude that they're not going to get vaccinated.
So good information can be a great removal of some fears, but with phobias in general, if we know this much about what they're caused by, are there things that we can do to treat phobias?
Definitely. There's a lot of things that we can do. On a psychotherapy level, we have what we call exposure therapy. So I'll give an example. If you have an irrational fear of dogs, then if you go for exposure therapy, you are then gradually but slowly exposed to dogs in their multiplicities. And the second you're exposed to that, you sort of learn how to live with that fear, but also you learn how to conquer it. And you start associating with dogs, probably learn that they're actually friendly animals and that they sense fear as well, and that they're actually able to calm you down as an individual. So it's exposure therapy. It's also, there are various techniques that we use, such as cognitive behavior therapy. But the long and short of it is that it's really about changing one's mindset with regards to the specific phobia that they face or the specific fear, irrational fear that they have.
So what's your advice then for people who have a phobia of needles that are wanting to go and get the vaccine?
The idea is not to overthink it because as we're defining phobias, we're saying that it's essentially just irrational fear. So the mere fact that we know that it's irrational fear means that we should put ourselves in a position where we don't overthink it, walk into the vaccination site. And I can tell you a trick that I used when I went there. I looked away. And by the time I looked back, I didn't even feel the prick or the pain. That's how painless it was.
I think that's great advice, and I think even more great that you shared a personal story too. I think it's going to relate with a lot of people. So Sean, thank you so much. Thank you for making time for me.
Thank you, Nick. Anytime.